Have you noticed how houses in the past always smelled clean, sparkled, and everything was spotless? Without having a maid, without expensive products, and without so much fuss? And how nowadays, with all the chemicals and modern gadgets, there are still homes that smell odd, have impossible stains, and forgotten corners. It's time to be brutally honest. We're losing the cleaning secrets our grandmothers used all their lives and that truly work. Today I'm going to show you 11 techniques that few people remember, some of which would even be called strange or old-fashioned, but that leave the house spotless. And I bet more than one of them you've never heard of before. My favorite is number 7, but I'd love to know yours in the comments. Let's begin. First technique, rice water to clean glass. Have you ever felt that no matter how much you clean the windows, those ugly marks, greasy streaks, or lines that appear when the sun hits them still remain? Well, I'm going to tell you a trick grandmothers used that few people know today: rice water. Yes, just as you heard. That white water left behind when you wash rice before cooking it. Many people throw it away without knowing the cleaning power it holds. Turns out that the natural starch from the rice dissolves in the water when washed, and that liquid has degreasing and dust-repellent properties. What people used to do was collect that water in a container, let it sit for a few minutes so the starch would concentrate well, and then with a soft or cotton cloth, they'd apply it to the glass. No need for any chemical supermarket glass cleaner, no expensive aerosols, no wet wipes. Just rice water. The correct way to do it is to take a clean cloth, soak it well in the warm rice water, and start wiping in circles over the glass. First on the dirtiest areas, especially where fingerprints, kitchen splashes, or stuck dust tend to accumulate. The incredible thing is that as you pass the cloth, the dirt lifts off easily because the starch acts as a cleaning film that traps grease and grime. Afterward, with another clean, dry cloth, you go over it to dry and polish. And here comes the best part. When the sun hits, there are no marks, no lines, no annoying shadows that usually appear when using an ordinary glass cleaner. The glass turns completely transparent, as if new. And since the starch leaves a fine protective layer, it also repels dust and stains for longer. Meaning, it not only cleans but keeps the glass clean for more days. Grandmothers used it on windows, mirrors, cupboard display cases, and even on large household glasses. Because besides being effective, it's natural, doesn't irritate the skin, has no strong smell, and makes use of something we normally throw away. And I assure you, if you try this trick once, you won't spend money again on those expensive products that promise a lot and deliver little. A homemade, old, powerful technique that no one tells you about. Will you dare to try it? Number 2, potato peel to polish cutlery. Did you know that in old kitchens there were no metal polishes or those expensive pastes to bring shine back to the cutlery? And yet, when you visited Grandma's house, the spoons, knives, and forks gleamed as if new. It wasn't magic or luck. It was pure cleverness, patience, and potato peels. Yes, those same peels we toss without a second thought today. Turns out that potato skin has natural properties that act as a gentle polisher and degreaser for metals, especially stainless steel and silver. It contains antioxidant compounds, minerals, and a texture that lets you clean without scratching. It's one of those tricks passed down from generation to generation and which very few people know about today. Let me tell you how they did it. Every time they peeled potatoes for lunch or dinner, grandmothers would save the cleanest peels, free of dirt or bruises, and while cooking or after eating, they'd sit at the table with a bowl of warm water and a cloth. They'd take the peels and use them as if they were a sponge. They'd rub directly over the stained, dull, or greasy cutlery. And the curious thing is, they didn't need detergent. The peel itself, when rubbed, released a slight moisture loaded with starch and antioxidants that began lifting the grime. At the same time, that soft but firm texture helped polish without leaving scratches. When they saw the cutlery regaining that silvery tone, they'd rinse it with warm water, dry it immediately with a clean cloth, and that's it. Cutlery like new. This method was especially useful for old cutlery, which over time turns yellowish or develops dark streaks. They also used it on the metal lids of sugar bowls, coffee spoons, large ladles, and even on some steel ornaments hanging in the kitchen. And the best part, no chemical smell, no metal damage, and no residues you might later end up ingesting. Some grandmothers even enhanced the effect by soaking the peels in warm water with a dash of vinegar for a few minutes before using them. This boosted the degreasing ability and helped neutralize odors. And when there were very grimy utensils, they combined potato peels with fine salt, using that mix as a natural exfoliant for metals. The most impressive thing about this technique is that besides being effective and eco-friendly, it's free. You make use of something that would otherwise end up in the trash. And if today you check your cutlery and notice it's lost its shine, has dry stains, or that dull tone caused by built-up grease, before thinking of buying a metal polish or replacing them, grab some potato peels and try it. It's almost therapeutic to see how, with such a simple gesture, spoons and forks shine again like in the houses of old. That's how grandmothers cleaned no Maid, no expensive chemicals, and without wasting time, using only what the kitchen gave them. Third, vinegar trap with bread bags to eliminate bad odors. This trick is so old, so effective, and so ignored nowadays that almost no one knows about it. Grandmothers used it when the kitchen was filled with that strong smell of frying, fish, onion, or grease after a heavy lunch. Also in bathrooms, when there was dampness or a weird smell that wouldn't go away even with air freshener. And the curious part is, they didn't use aerosols or those modern supermarket diffusers. They used stale bread and vinegar. That simple, and that brilliant. I'll explain how it works. Stale bread, the kind no one wants to eat anymore because it's dry, hard, even with a crust like stone, has a porous structure that works like a natural sponge. And vinegar, which is a natural deodorizer and bactericide, when it soaks into that bread, starts to evaporate little by little, releasing its acidic vapors that neutralize bad odors in the air without masking them with artificial perfumes. What they used to do was take a piece of old bread, it could be a roll, a piece of maracata, any stale bread, soak it well in regular white vinegar and place it on a small plate, a little bowl, or even directly on an open paper bag. They would leave it in the kitchen, in the bathroom corner, or near the trash can. And while it seemed like nothing was happening, that soaked bread would start absorbing odor molecules and releasing a mild acidic scent that completely removed the bad smell from the air. And why is it better than an aerosol or those air fresheners? Because those only cover up the smell with fragrance. The bread with vinegar, on the other hand, eliminates it from the source, capturing the odor particles and purifying the air. Not to mention that it doesn't intoxicate, doesn't leave chemical residues in the air, and doesn't trigger allergies like many synthetic air fresheners do. A curious fact, grandmothers also used it when an egg broke and the smell lingered in the kitchen, or when there was trapped humidity in a room. Even inside closets, they would place a little piece of bread with vinegar on a dish, and within a few hours the smell of musty clothes would disappear. And they didn't stop there. Some mixed vinegar with a few drops of natural essence like lemon or lavender and soaked the bread so that, besides eliminating the bad odor, it would leave a light and natural fragrance. None of those overpowering perfumes. Something mild, clean, and fresh, just like houses used to smell. So the next time your kitchen smells of fried food, reheated meals, or your bathroom has that strange odor that won't leave even with the window open, don't run out to buy an aerosol. Grab that piece of stale bread you were about to throw away, soak it in vinegar, and let it work. In less time than you think, the air will feel clean, and you'll sense that simple and honest freshness of our grandmothers' homes. Because they truly knew how to keep a house spotless without depending on anything or anyone. Number 4. Talcum powder to remove grease stains from fabric. This trick is one of those that were only passed along in the kitchen or the home laundry room, between grandmothers, aunts, and mothers, and today hardly anyone remembers it. Because back then, there were no instant stain removers, no magic aerosols, no machines with special wash programs for grease stains. What they had was ingenuity, patience, and talcum powder. Yes, talc. The same one used for babies or to keep feet dry in summer. But grandmothers always kept it on hand, not only in the bathroom but also in the kitchen, because they knew it was one of the best natural absorbents to remove grease stains from fabric. And I'm not just talking about freshly made stains. Even with old, dried stains, talc could work wonders. Let me tell you how they did it. When a drop of oil fell on a shirt, a splash of lard on a skirt, or a tablecloth ended up stained with grease from a roast or stew, they didn't panic or rush to wash it right away. The first step was to act quickly with talc. They grabbed the bottle, covered the stain completely with a good thick layer of powder, making sure it was well covered, like a little white mound over the fabric, and let it sit. The ideal thing was to wait at least an hour. Because during that time, the talc would start to absorb the grease from the fabric fibers. Since it's so fine and dry, it penetrates the weave and captures the oil like a microscopic sponge. The longer it sat, the better the result. Some grandmothers, if the stain was very stubborn or large, left the talc on overnight. Then, using a soft bristled brush or even a dry towel, they gently brushed the area to remove the talc. And here came the magic. Along with the white powder, the grease would come off too. In many cases, the stain would vanish without a trace. If any remained, it was enough to wash the garment as usual, and once it came out of the wash, not even a shadow of the stain remained. This trick was so effective that they also used it on upholstery, cushions, carpets, and curtains. When an oil stain landed on a chair or the living room couch, the first thing they did was sprinkle talc, let it absorb, and then brush or vacuum it away. No need to change the fabric or call a cleaning service. And as if that wasn't enough, it wasn't just for kitchen grease. It also worked for stains from cream, oily makeup, butter, or any greasy substance that could ruin a delicate garment. Even on tricky fabrics like silk, linen, or velvet. Today, in an era where everything gets solved with expensive, complicated products, this talcum powder trick remains one of the simplest, cheapest, and most effective out there. A grandmother's remedy that not only saves a shirt or a tablecloth, but also teaches an important lesson, that in the past with less, people achieved more. And that many times, the solution is right there, in a forgotten bottle in the bathroom or on the kitchen shelf. Next time you get a grease stain, don't panic, don't run out to buy a spray. Grab some talc, cover it well, wait, and then tell me how it went. 5. Ice to remove gum stuck on carpets. This trick is one of those domestic lifesavers that every homemaker should have memorized, because when it happens out of nowhere and always at the worst possible time. A child drops gum onto the living room carpet, someone unknowingly sits on one, or you step on one in the street and unknowingly track it all the way onto your carpet. And anyone would think the only solution is to cut the fabric or resign yourself to living with that sticky mess there. But grandmothers had their foolproof method, and they didn't need expensive products or complicated techniques, just an ice cube. That simple. Because gum, when it's soft and sticky, is almost impossible to remove. It stretches, sticks more, and ends up damaging the fabric fibers if you try to pull it off by force. But if you freeze it until it hardens completely, it becomes brittle and loses its ability to adhere. And that's where the ice comes in. What our grandmothers did was take several ice cubes and place them directly on the gum, covering it well. If the ice melted too quickly, they'd use a plastic bag with ice inside to keep it in contact without soaking the carpet. The important thing was to leave it long enough for the gum to harden to the point of becoming rigid like a stone. Once it was very hard, with a blunt knife, a spatula, or even an old plastic card, they would carefully lift the gum, detaching it from the fibers without tearing them or leaving residue. In most cases, it came off whole, like a solid piece. And if any small bits remained, they would repeat the process or remove them with their nails or the edge of a spoon. And why did it work so well? Because extreme cold causes the particles of the gum to contract, hardening its texture and reducing its stickiness to the fabric. It's the same principle industrial freezing sprays use to remove glue, but without spending a dime and without damaging the fabric. This trick wasn't exclusive to carpets. They also used it on curtains, armchairs, clothing, car seats, and even in hair when a child arrived with gum tangled up. In that case, they'd apply ice directly to the affected strand, wait for it to harden, and then remove it little by little, without having to cut the hair. And another extra tip, after removing the gum, if any oily mark or shadow remained on the fabric, the grandmothers would sprinkle talcum powder or baking soda on the area, let it sit for a while to absorb the grease, and then brush it off. That way the carpet or fabric would be spotless, as if nothing had happened. A simple, homemade trick that can save you a major headache, and although few people remember it today, it remains one of the most effective methods out there. The next time you see gum stuck where it shouldn't be, don't panic, don't cut, don't scrub aimlessly. Run to the freezer, grab an ice cube, and do what the grandmothers used to do. It works, I promise you. 6th technique, cleaning blinds with an old sock. This trick is one of those that, once you try it, you won't understand how you lived so many years cleaning blinds any other way. Because let's be honest, cleaning blinds is one of those household chores almost nobody wants to do. They collect dust, grease, stuck on dirt, And every slat is a trap for grime. Using a loose cloth is awkward, it doesn't reach the edges well, and you end up kicking up more dust into the air than actually cleaning. But grandmothers, who had no time to waste nor a maid to do it for them, solved this problem with something as simple and effective as an old sock. And not just any sock, those stretched out, pilled cotton socks no one wants to wear anymore because they look ugly. To them, those socks were perfect cleaning tools, especially for blinds. Because when you put the sock on your hand like a glove, you gained two things: absolute control over your movements and total access to both sides of the slat at the same time. The method went like this. The sock was slightly dampened with warm water. If there was grease or stuck on dirt, they could add a few drops of white vinegar or lemon juice to the water to boost its degreasing power. Then, with their hand covered by the damp sock, they would grab each slat of the blind as if pinching it between their fingers and slide their hand along the entire bar, trapping dust and dirt from both sides in a single pass. Unlike a cloth, which tends to slip or leave areas uncleaned, the sock molds to the shape of your fingers, allowing you to reach the edges, corners, and spots where dirt tends to build up most. And being slightly damp, the dust sticks to the fabric without rising into the air. The result: clean blinds, no floating dust, and no need to take them down or move furniture. When the sock got too dirty, they'd rinse it in the water, wring it out well, and keep cleaning. If the grime was excessive, they'd have a second spare sock ready. And when they finished, those old socks ended their lives as the silent heroes of the cleaning routine. Another advantage: this trick wasn't limited to plastic blinds. It worked perfectly on wooden, metal, and even stiff fabric blinds. And not just at home. Also in offices, commercial kitchens, and shop display cases. Plus, for blinds with greasy buildup, especially in kitchens, grandmothers would make a mixture of warm water with vinegar and a few drops of detergent, dampen the sock in that mix, and the result was even better. And as if that wasn't enough, many grandmothers used this same trick to clean air vents, fan blades, and radiator slots. Any spot where a regular cloth couldn't reach. A simple, practical, inexpensive, and so effective trick that once you try it, you'll never pick up a loose cloth for blinds again. Because grandmothers knew that with a little ingenuity, you can clean faster, better, and without complicating things. That simple. Number 7. Cleaning wooden furniture with beer. Yes, beer. This trick is an authentic household relic that very few people know about today, but in old homes it was practically a ritual. Because wooden furniture wasn't cleaned with perfumed aerosols or commercial waxes. No, grandmothers did it with whatever they had on hand, and one of their best-kept secrets was none other than beer. Yes, beer. The same one men would drink at lunchtime or that would be left behind in an open bottle after a family meal. But for grandmothers, beer wasn't just a drink, it was a natural wood furniture polish. And I can assure you it worked wonderfully. Why? Because beer contains barley, yeast, and natural sugars that, when they come into contact with wood, nourish it, remove old stains, and restore that warm shine that gets lost over time and dust. Plus, it has a slight acidity that helps lift surface grime without damaging the varnish. The technique was very simple but meticulous. First, they made sure to use beer at room temperature, never cold. Because the cold could damage some delicate woods or leave moisture marks. They'd take a soft cotton cloth, those old t-shirts no one used anymore, or a cloth diaper, and slightly moisten it in the beer. It wasn't about soaking the furniture, just dampening the cloth. Then, they'd rub it in circular motions over the surface of the wood, focusing on the dull, stained areas or where dust had built up. The effect was almost immediate. The wood would start to regain that natural shine and that deep color you only see on well-cared-for furniture. 4 old stains, those glass marks or splashes that dry and leave a shadow on the wood, grandmothers would dampen the cloth a bit more with beer, leave it resting on the stain for a couple of minutes, and then gently rub. The beer would loosen the grime and even out the tone of the wood. And the best part, after cleaning the entire surface, they'd pass a dry cloth over it to remove any excess and polish it. There was no beer smell left because it evaporated quickly, leaving only that clean, natural wood aroma old houses used to have. This trick was used on tables, chairs, dressers, mirror frames, shelves, and even cabinet doors. Especially effective on dark or varnished woods, but it also worked on light or untreated woods as long as it was applied carefully. Some bolder grandmothers would even enhance the mix, adding a few drops of lemon juice or a splash of white vinegar to the beer to boost its cleaning and disinfecting effect. But most commonly, they used it on its own, just like that, trusting its ability to bring furniture back to life. An inexpensive, natural trick, free of harsh chemicals, that not only cleaned but nourished the wood and kept it from drying out or cracking. Because grandmothers knew how to care for their belongings. They didn't replace things every 2 years, they kept them impeccable for decades. And this kind of secret was the reason why. So if you have a dull, stained, or lifeless piece of furniture at home, before thinking about varnishing it or spending money on expensive waxes, try this. Open a room temperature beer, dampen a clean cloth, and wipe down that wood that's been asking for care for ages. You'll be surprised. And in the process, you'll understand why homes used to shine and smell so different. 8. Lemon peel with salt to clean cutting boards. This trick is a true gem of old kitchens, one of those techniques passed down silently, without manuals or videos, but grandmothers knew them by heart. And it makes sense, because back then there were no supermarket disinfectant solutions, no antibacterial sprays, no specialized cutting board detergents. The boards were made of solid wood, used daily for meat, chicken, fish, fruits, and vegetables. And over time, they accumulated stains, strong odors, and invisible bacteria. But grandmothers didn't overcomplicate it. They used lemon peel and coarse salt. And no, it wasn't a whim or an improvised remedy. It was pure household wisdom. Because lemon is one of the most powerful natural disinfectants that exists, thanks to its acidity, which eliminates germs, cuts grease, and neutralizes odors. And coarse salt acts as a natural exfoliant, capable of scraping away embedded food particles, dried-on grease, and surface stains without damaging the wood. The process was practically a ritual. They'd take a fresh lemon, cut it in half, and sprinkle a generous layer of coarse salt over the cutting board. Not fine salt, because that dissolves too quickly. Coarse salt, on the other hand, stays on the surface and scrubs away grime more effectively. Then, using one of the lemon halves, they'd start rubbing hard in circular motions, covering the entire board. The acidity from the lemon would start mixing with the salt, forming a kind of natural cleaning paste that, on contact with the wood, lifted grease residues, meat juices, and bacteria. And as they scrubbed, the fresh scent of lemon would fill the kitchen, leaving that clean, natural feeling no chemical disinfectant can match. The best part is that this technique didn't just disinfect. It also completely removed the strong odors that stay in the wood after cutting onion, garlic, fish, or raw meat. Because those smells tend to soak into the fibers of the board and linger even after washing. With lemon and salt, they were neutralized instantly. For old stains or heavily soiled areas, grandmothers would let the salt and lemon juice mixture sit on the board for a few minutes before scrubbing, allowing the acidity to penetrate and whiten the wood. And once the job was done, they'd rinse it with hot water and dry it thoroughly with a clean cloth to avoid trapping moisture in the board. This trick not only restored the board's clean, bright appearance but also prolonged its lifespan. Because by cleaning with natural products, they avoided drying out or cracking the wood, something that happens when using harsh detergents or bleach. And as an added touch, some more meticulous grandmothers would apply a few drops of vegetable oil or olive oil over the dry board afterward, rubbing it in with a cloth to hydrate the wood and keep it nourished, preventing it from cracking or staining easily. That's how kitchen utensils were cared for in the past, with respect, affection, and cleverness. Because a wooden cutting board wasn't thrown away after 2 years. It was cleaned, disinfected, and kept as good as new. And if today you want to bring back that natural cleanliness and fresh scent to your kitchen, look no further. Cut a lemon, grab a handful of coarse salt, and do what the grandmothers used to do. You'll see and smell the difference. 9th, steam with eucalyptus leaves to disinfect the bathroom. This trick is one of those secrets that combine wisdom, nature, and a bit of patience, and that have been present in homes since time immemorial, though almost no one uses it nowadays. Bathrooms tend to be complicated spaces. Constant humidity, bad odors, bacteria hiding in corners and crevices, and a type of cleaning that often isn't enough to completely eliminate all that. Grandmothers, however, had their simple, effective, and natural way to keep the bathroom spotless, disinfected, and with a fresh scent that didn't come from artificial chemicals. Their secret weapon was steam with eucalyptus leaves. Why eucalyptus? Because this plant is a powerful natural disinfectant, antibacterial, and antifungal. Its essential oils can eliminate microorganisms that cause bad odors and diseases, and at the same time, it has a penetrating, fresh scent that helps purify the air. But grandmothers didn't use expensive oils or sprays. They used fresh or dried leaves, easily found in gardens or markets. The procedure is simple but requires patience. First, water is boiled in a pot. When it reaches a full boil, a good handful of eucalyptus leaves is added. The leaves release their essential oils into the rising steam. Then, that mixture, the hot water with the leaves, is carefully poured into a heat-resistant container, like a large bowl or deep dish. Next, that bowl is placed inside the bathroom, which should be completely closed, with no open windows or doors. This is important so the steam can concentrate in the space and do its job. The bowl with the boiling water and leaves is left there for about 15 to 20 minutes, enough time for the steam to permeate every surface, corner, tile, and even the air. As the steam fills the bathroom, the disinfecting properties of the eucalyptus go to work, killing bacteria, eliminating fungi that can grow in tile joints or behind the toilet, and reducing the humidity in the air, which is the perfect breeding ground for bad odors and microorganisms. Additionally, the natural scent of eucalyptus softly and lastingly fills the bathroom. Nothing like those artificial air fresheners that only mask the problem. Here, the air is purified, humidity is reduced, and a fresh, relaxing and healthy environment is created. Some grandmothers went a step further and, after doing the steam treatment, would wipe down the surfaces with a clean, dry cloth to remove any remaining moisture, leaving everything dry and shiny. Other complementary tips included ventilating the bathroom well after the session to renew the air and prevent humidity from building up. This natural trick also helps prevent mold on walls and ceilings, because eucalyptus has a fungicidal effect that fights the spores lurking in damp places. And if you don't have fresh leaves, you can use dried branches or even a few drops of eucalyptus essential oil in the boiling water to achieve a similar effect. But nothing beats the authentic experience of natural leaves. In short, this simple ritual with steam and eucalyptus is an eco-friendly, affordable, and highly effective way to keep the bathroom clean, disinfected, moisture-free, and filled with a scent that speaks of real cleanliness, not artificial perfumes. It's one of those grandmother secrets well worth rescuing and using today, because it not only protects your health but also takes care of your home and your wallet. Would you dare try it? 10th, stale bread to pick up broken glass. This is one of those tricks that seems so simple, so obvious when someone tells you, but in the heat of the moment, it can save you from a nasty scare or even a serious cut. Who hasn't had that experience of breaking a glass, bottle, or mirror, then sweeping or vacuuming without being able to pick up all the tiny fragments, those microscopic pieces that stay hidden in carpets, floor joints, or hard-to-reach corners? Those invisible bits that seem to be gone but can easily cut your skin if you're not careful. Well, grandmothers had their foolproof, natural way of avoiding that danger, using stale bread. Yes, stale bread, that piece we all forget in the pantry, already dry, hard as a rock, and no one wants to eat. But it's precisely that hardness and porous texture that's the key. When you gently rub it over the area where the glass broke, the bread acts like a soft yet effective sponge. The tiny fragments stick to the bread's crumb, get trapped, and no longer scatter. What they do was take a piece of stale bread, it could be an old roll, a dry baguette, or any kind of firm crumb bread, and gently but firmly pass it over the entire affected area. It wasn't about pressing the glass in, but trapping it. And the dry, slightly rough texture of the bread made it easy for the small glass pieces to stick without scratching or damaging the floor or carpet. After passing the bread over the whole area, the crumb would be filled with those fragments, which could be safely discarded, wrapped up to prevent anyone from coming into contact with them. And the floor or carpet would be much cleaner and safer to walk on without fear. This trick is especially useful on wooden floors or carpets, where brooms or vacuums sometimes miss fragments or even push them deeper inside, making them harder to remove. It's also ideal for picking up bits of glass on delicate tables or countertops where you wouldn't want to scratch the surface with metal tools. Plus, using bread to pick up broken glass is not only effective but also quick and inexpensive. You don't need special products or equipment, just that piece of bread you were probably about to throw away. And while others waste time searching for tools or special items, you solve the problem with something you already have at home. Some grandmothers even recommended combining this method with a final wipe using a damp sponge to make sure not a single invisible fragment was left behind, especially in homes with small children or pets. It's one of those home secrets that reminds us that often, the simplest and most natural solutions are the best. So the next time you have an accident with broken glass, before you panic or leave the floor dangerously scattered, grab a piece of stale bread and run it over the area. Your home and your feet will thank you for it. And number 11, water with onion to remove paint odors. This last trick is one of those that very few people know, and it can save you from an invisible torture, that unbearable, lingering smell that remains after painting a room. You know exactly what I mean, right? That strong chemical odor that seems to cling to the walls, furniture, and even to the clothes you're wearing. Regular air fresheners don't work, electric purifiers can be expensive, and opening windows when it's cold or rainy isn't always an option. Well, grandmothers had their own natural, simple, and very effective solution, using onions. Yes, onions. The very same ones you often avoid for fear of tearing up, but that in this case become your best ally against paint fumes. Why does it work? Because onions have the ability to absorb strong odors thanks to their sulfur compounds, which, when in contact with air saturated with solvents, neutralize the molecules responsible for the bad smell. It's a natural process, no chemicals, no artificial scents, just pure absorption. And the method is so simple it's almost unbelievable. You take a fresh onion, cut it into 4 parts or thick slices, and place it in a bowl of clean water. There's no need to peel it too much or chop it finely. The more surface area exposed, the better. Then, place that bowl in the center or in a corner of the freshly painted room and let it work for several hours, ideally overnight. While the onion works, its natural scent blends with the air and traps and neutralizes the strong paint smell. In less than a day, you'll notice that the unpleasant odor has diminished dramatically, almost completely disappearing. And the best part is that there's no lingering onion smell or odd fragrance left behind. It's as if the air has been naturally and harmlessly cleansed. Plus, this trick isn't only useful for fresh paint. It's also great for eliminating strong odors in rooms filled with smoke, humidity, or even pet smells. And the best part? It's completely safe, eco-friendly, and inexpensive, since you're using something you already have in your kitchen. Grandmothers even had variations of this method. Some would add a little vinegar to the water to boost absorption, while others would place chopped onions in an open dish without water to absorb the odor directly. But the version with a bowl of water is the most practical and least invasive for your home's decor. In short, if you've ever painted your home or a room and felt trapped by that persistent smell that just won't leave, don't panic or open a dozen windows. Try this grandmother's trick with onion and water, and you'll see how in just a few hours your home will be fresh and pleasant again. Because cleanliness isn't just about what you see, it's also something you feel in the air. If your home doesn't smell clean, doesn't shine, and doesn't give you that warm, cozy feeling, it's not because you lack money or a maid, it's probably because no one ever told you these grandmother tricks. And if even one of them surprised you, it's time to try it today.